what you wrote here, your bio. Her bio is so sweet and short. I love it. Some people have bios that are this long. I'm like, oh my goodness, keep it simple, people. But, a sensitive introverted therapist helping introverted teens and adults manage social anxiety, find success in relationships, and increase self esteem. This is Tracy's website. I'll make sure we post it in the chat as well because you might want to book a session with Tracy after this. But I just want to open the floor to you, Tracy, to lead us wherever you want to go today.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'll start. And then if people do have questions as we go, so I'll start where I see introverted parents struggle. And if it's not really matching what people are looking for, yeah, I'm welcome to answer questions along the way. So often what happens with introverted people is that we feel that there's something wrong with us because we grew up in this really extroverted world. And we get asked questions like, why are you so quiet? Are you okay? And we're sitting there feeling, perfectly fine. But then even when that question, why are you so quiet? When I was a kid, I didn't know the answer to that. And the person asking didn't know the answer to that because I didn't know I was introverted then. So we kind of grow up feeling like there's something wrong with us. And there's one author, Lori Holge, and in her book, she uses the term failed extrovert. And when I heard that, I'm like, man, like that's my life. Like I felt I was always trying to be this person that I could never be, but I didn't know I couldn't ever be that. But then once I discovered I was introverted, I'm like, oh, I don't do great in group settings because I'm introverted, right? So it's not failure. It's just not my place that I do well in. So then, so fast forward to parenting, it's almost like that same thing that sometimes it felt like a bit like I was back in junior high. Like, so, parents are gathering, making friends, getting in, like inviting each other to each other's houses. Kids start hanging out together. Those families become friends. And then I was like kind of off to the side, again, still trying to do things the way I thought I was supposed to do things socially, but then also in my own home is that I'm supposed to always be interacting with my kids, like reading and talking and activities but I couldn't. And once I got to 3 kids, and I had my kids really close together, so essentially I was in survival mode once I got to baby number 3. So like I'm not like doing that extra. And I had gone to it was like some kind of parenting group, and I was talking to another mom and a lovely woman, and she asked me that. So she said, when you put your daughter down for her afternoon nap, is that when you teach your boys, their numbers and letters? I'm like, no. That's when I turn the TV on, I give them snacks, I let them watch SpongeBob, and then I go away from them and have a coffee all by myself because I needed that period of time where I didn't talk to anybody, nobody talked to me. But it was like that, and I wasn't in a place where I could have actually claimed that with her, but I just felt like what I needed wasn't okay, right? So I really had to do some work around, it's okay to be quiet. And I know that I'm a really good parent, that my kids aren't suffering because I'm quiet, but the more that I accept myself and take care of myself, the better I show up for them too. So yeah, so I would say that's an overview for how I see introverted parents struggle in that sense that they're not good enough for their kids. And I don't know if there's any dads here today, but I think there's almost something a bit different for the introverted dads, like feeling that they don't know how to talk. They don't know how to talk to their kids. Like they tell them when to go to bed and you need to eat supper. But as introverts, we can also be quite private. So then we might not be sharing things with our kids, like just those little stories about something interesting we saw outside, or so it was some of my male clients, helping them almost like learn how to talk to their kids in a way that it's creating connection, and kind of pushing past that of being too private with their kids as well. But when we feel like we're flawed, it's hard to open up, right? So it's almost like working both sides of that. Yeah, so just looking at my notes here. So in terms of, so kind of like with COVID-19, right? So we're all in our homes together. Yeah, and they're just like, and depending on how many kids you have, if your partner's working from home, right? As soon as you, like, no matter where you look, there's another human. So how to manage that, and for all of us, whether we're introverted, extroverted, self-care is really important. The one thing I see with my clients and my own struggle for a while was that what felt good for me, that was like actually self-care for me, wasn't seen as the right way to do self-care. So if I wanted to go for a walk by myself, I actually should want to go for a walk with a friend, right? Because, you know, doing something on your own is a bit strange or weird. So I think there's a piece about really claiming if it works for you, it works for you, right? So if you want to spend your hour, let's say you decide 30 minutes a day, I'm going to do this thing by myself because I enjoy doing it by myself, right? And I really encourage my clients to that. So when you make that plan to do that self-care, and when you go to do it, like you just somehow can't do it, but listen to that. Like what's that inner dialogue that you're telling yourself, right? And for some of us, we're not good at, like, if my kids would rather me spend time with them, then I shouldn't take time for myself. But it's so important because we can't parent from depletion. Well, we can, but we're not going to do it well, right? So even when I think, like when my kids were really little, I would often get comments about how calm I was. And I know that's true about me, but I'm calm until I'm not, right? Like I'm nice and I'm friendly and I'm patient with my kids. And then I'm gone. Like, and now I'm snapping at them. I'm irritated with them. And it was because I wasn't doing good self-care, right? So I didn't realize I was past my point of needing to take care of myself. And then they kind of paid, they paid the price for that. Right. So as I slow down, as I do self-care, and again, do those things that fit for me, it goes much better. So I would say for the parents, like if you can do like 30 minutes a day by yourself and whatever that looks like. For me, the one good thing, so when I go into my room and just really noticing that within those four walls, there's nobody else but me. Right. So logically, I know that, but just that awareness of there's nobody else in these four walls but me. And just that my body, like, right, there's no conversation here. There's no needs I need to take care of. There's no like somebody I have to try to avoid. Right. Because, and just like to notice how that feels. I know even when my kids were really young, we lived in a different house. So in our master bedroom, there was a lock on the door, and then we had the ensuite and there was a lock on the door. Remember this one Sunday morning, so my husband's downstairs with the kids and I went upstairs to shower, and I didn't realize it until afterwards, but I locked the master door, like the bedroom door, and then I locked the bathroom door. Right? It's like I just needed these barriers because I just needed to make sure nobody came. It would be hard for them to find me. Right? So just like just being aware of what you need. And the one thing too I'll suggest with my clients if they're really feeling overwhelmed is when you go into your room, like crawl into bed and just put the covers over you. And kind of the reason for that is it reduces all the stimulus. So part of, as an introvert, we get drained by stimulus. It's not just conversation, but it's noise, it's movement, it's sound. So you put the covers over you and so now you're in darkness. You might still be able to hear some things, but it's muffled. And, you know, if you could do that for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and again, just notice if your body calms down, notice if that feeds you. And but definitely like doing those self-care pieces is important. I think that's what's going to get us through however this kind of period of time lasts, with doing more at-home pieces there. I'm just looking at my, so I think the other thing, and I think this is kind of good timing for us as introverts. So social anxiety is more common for introverts, and we're generally more anxious people, I think, just because of how we're wired. And we could be, if we're socially anxious as a parent, we were likely like that before kids as well. And what my experience was, like, as I said earlier, groups of parents would collect together. That's how friendships were made. And that was really a struggle for me. But what I've learned, building one-on-one relationships, right, is the way that I've built a good network of parents that, you know, they know me well, I know them well, I know their kids, they know my kids. But so, the one thing I would suggest to people is looking at how much are you trying to live as an extrovert, right? So, and I realized I was trying to do that, but without that awareness. So I have to go join that group of parents. I have to try to be like them. And I had really no success there, right? So then once I did that one-on-one connecting, and in terms of the timing, if people wanted to experiment with that, because we can't do large groups of people right now, right? But if there's that, one or two parents that you really like, you want better connections, reaching out one-on-one. But if social anxiety is something that shows up for you, again, listening to that, how do you talk yourself out of sending that invite? So maybe you sent the invite, the person says yes. How soon do the excuses start to show up? It's like, oh, I think I'm a little sick, or I better cancel because my daughter needs this or that. So really looking at how much the anxiety is in charge, and then we get to listen to that anxiety or not. So yeah, and then the more, and this is why I really like the work that you do, Connie, like just around building those connections, because the more connected we are in really good connections, the more that reduces anxiety as well. So
I like how you just said good connections, because I think when people hear the word connection, they think, oh, I have to be friends with everyone. I have to be super social. I have to have a large network of friends. And I love what you're saying about deep rooted connection, minimal. So quality over quantity.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then that's when we really build, like, we do have those people to rely on, because we built those deeper connections, and it feels a bit safer to say, I'm actually having a crappy day today, right? With our more superficial connections, like, they can be nice and friendly, but there isn't the deepness there. So then it's hard to be more vulnerable in those relationships. So yeah, and sometimes too for introverts, and this again true for myself, is that I didn't, because I felt like I was flawed, I didn't know that anybody would actually want to be friends with me, right? So again, in terms of that, so people could start experimenting with, like, I actually do want to connect more with this person, um, but then does all the self-doubt show up around that, right? And talking yourself out of, well, I'm actually pretty boring, I have nothing to offer. And really, as introverts, we we're quite lovely people, and we're pretty loyal to our friends, and that we bring a lot to a relationship, but lots of us grew up being told something different about ourselves. So a lot of the work can be undoing those messages and replacing it with really true positive messages about themselves.
I think our society really celebrates and seems to focus on the extrovert. On, you know, you see commercials. What are commercials all around? Well, they're all around popularity and status and large circles of friends, and we celebrate that. And I think, what I'm hearing you say through all of this is to be okay with being that one that doesn't necessarily want that, and to not feel strange when we aren't.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, and that like, we're still good people even if we're not extroverted. But yeah, and I do believe it's changing, but extroversion definitely is a more rewarded behavior than introversion. um, yeah, because even like when I go to parent teacher interviews, because my two oldest are more introverted, my daughter is more extroverted, and I'll hear lots of your boys are really good listeners, they sit and they come into class, they sit and they're organized. But then there's always that one teacher is, but you're so quiet, right? So there's that, like, that judgment. But and he said, like, in this, it's a science teacher, he says it in a really kind way, and it's like, but I want to hear more from you, right? But my son is like, he's just like dealing with, like, learning science, and he doesn't have that need to be verbal about what he's learning. But it's like he's, and the teacher isn't saying he's doing something wrong, but it leaves the impression that he is. So yeah, so I think the more we know what's normal for an introvert, like, I think the more people just start to relax in general. Because I think some of the work I do with my clients is just helping them know you're actually really normal for an introvert, right? If we always compare ourselves to extroverts, we will always be abnormal and always lacking if that's the standard. So right? So really trying to change that standard that, um, yeah, there's lots of great things about introversion and extroversion.
Maybe it comes down to I I am okay. I'm okay the way I am, and know what we need. I was asking a group of parents actually a few weeks ago. We have a parent group that meets on Thursday nights, and I asked them, "What do you need?" And no one could answer me. No one knew what they needed, and that concerned me.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I bet if you ask, what do your kids need? There'd probably be lots of responses to that. Yeah, that's really interesting.
And so
Yeah.
to be okay with what we need, if we need that time to ourselves every day, and that we're, I'm like that at home. I certainly don't take a lot of time. Like when I talk about connection, people look at me and say, well, she's the mom who talks about connection. But in my house, I spend I'm not always with my kids. We are all very independent, living in the same house, and then we'll do something like play badminton outside. But I am not that type of parent that is like right there with my children all day long. That would drive me nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Do that.
Oh, yeah. And to have space for that's okay for you to parent like that. And if there's another parent that likes to be more hands-on and involved, that's okay too, right? That nobody's parenting better. And I think if our kids are doing well, then we're parenting whatever that right way is for them. So
Yeah. I'm wondering here, I'm noticing, I love the book Circle of Security, by the way. Teresa's mentioned that book. That book was recommended to me when we were in the middle of a mental health crisis with our oldest, and it is amazing. And um, it's so important. The circle of security, this idea, and now I understand the bottom hands, to bring our kids closer doesn't really mean that we are always right next to them. It doesn't mean that we are obliged to hover over them all day long. And I'm really loving. If you go up in the chat, Tracy, you'll see that people are feeling relieved. People are feeling like, oh, Tracy just gets me. So I see you introverts now.
yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. And the one thing too with introversion, with what you're saying, like I think we have to, like, we like to connect and then we need to disconnect. And in that disconnect, we do that recharging and then we reconnect. And I've learned for myself, the longer I'm connected, right? So then I've like doing those long conversations or long hangouts, and even with friends sometimes, that the more, it's like the more I'm disconnected internally from myself, which then makes those conversations even harder in that moment, right? So if I kind of find, and not, I don't think there's ever, I think we're always working to achieve balance. I don't think it's a place we land and live forever. Right? But then what's that, like, how do I connect and disconnect? And with my kids, um, with my oldest, like I do a chat with him each night individually. So my oldest, like that, like, we will have like little conversations throughout the day, but that's where he needs that connection with me. And I don't need to be trying to get that like all the time from him. And same with my middle guy needs a little bit more, but my youngest, if she could like live in my back pocket, she would. Right. So it's like individually too, trying to find the ways we connect well with our kids, but also what they need. But as parents, that we don't override what we need either. Right. And, there's, and that to me, like, I always love the word experimenting, right? So just trying out different things and notice how it felt for you, notice how your kids are doing. And do you just keep doing that for a while? Do you need to adjust something? But as parents, we're part of the equation, right? And I think that I think that parents are almost like so forgotten in the world of parenting somehow, right? That what we need, and just like what you said when you asked that question, like, what do you mean? What do I need? Like, man, like as humans, we need all the time, right? Like whether we're 2 or 40 or whatever. So yeah, so I think there's a piece there of just generally getting more comfortable with, we actually do have needs as humans, and it's okay to have needs. And if my needs are different than your needs, that's okay too.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
Kristen is just saying thank you already. She's just feeling, that this has been so um, valuable for her. And I feel like giving that permission is so important. And to hear it, it's one thing to hear it from your friend to say, you get to be you and I get to be me. But when you hear it from a therapist, it has some weight. It's like, no, this really actually is true then.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And as humans, we're so complicated and right. So, yeah. Yeah. So it's, yeah.
Therapist approved, everyone. Tracy approves that you are allowed to be you.
Yes. Yeah. You're allowed to have needs and you're allowed to take care of your needs.
I'm curious, for you as an introvert, and now your daughter is an extrovert. How do you manage that?
Yeah, it's really been a lot of learning on my part, and I have to say, really humbling because with my boys, like almost like once I kind of learned how to like take care of a baby, their temperament and my temperament just was pretty smooth. And then she comes along and she doesn't want to watch TV. Like, when I talk about that nap time. So when she was on her nap time, I'm like, okay, I still need this time. You need to you need to go watch TV. She was not on board with that. Right. So it was really about how do I take care of myself? How do I take care of her? And the a big learning, and this is like I would say all introvert extrovert relationships, an extrovert typically needs more from us than we need from them. So my needs get met quicker in that connection. And even like with my husband's more extroverted, right? So then I had to like, sometimes I'm giving when I don't want to give, but I have to make sure I don't stay in that space too long because then now I'm going to get irritated with her. I'm going to resent her, right? So then how do I take a step back? And then she really likes to go for bike rides. So she feels connected to me and we can't have these long conversations on a bike ride.
That's so perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And she needs her chat time at bedtime. Like that's a non-negotiable. Right. So even if there's that night, I'm like, I just want to end my night at 7:00. Right. But I know that's going to impact her in a negative way. Right. So then that's when I push myself to give her more then. But if it's 2:00 on a Sunday afternoon and I need that time by myself, I get to do that at that time. Right. So and as she gets older, those needs will change. Right? So just kind of being aware of what she needs, what I need. And not that it's not a balanced relationship, but still being aware that it's more my job to meet her needs. Right. Like as opposed to a friend relationship. So
But I love how you've made it work. You have a non-negotiable. So, but if you needed time any other moment of the day, you've set yourself up well to have that, to say, we are going to have such a great talk tonight at 7. I love that.
yeah, yeah. And the other thing too that I've learned is like I especially with her, like I talk to her about like I actually need because even she likes when we do sleepovers. And so she's been asking, more lately, and I've had to say I can't. Like if she's going to school Monday morning, I can hang out with her longer on the weekend, but it's like I know if I did a sleepover with her, like I don't get any break. So I've had to say because I actually do need time by myself. Right? So not making it something that I'm almost like trying to be secretive about. So then even though she doesn't like my answer, she understands it's not that I don't want to spend more time with her. Is I do have different needs and I have to take care of that so I can show up Saturday morning and be a good parent to her, not be I'm completely depleted and now I don't want to see anybody at all.
And
And nobody.
I wonder if some parents here on the call have even wondered, or didn't even realize that we can tell our kids what we need. And when we do that, we're teaching them that it's okay for them to advocate for their needs. And when they grow up and be a parent, they're not, I don't know about your mom, but my mom was a superstar. I mean, she did everything. And so when I didn't do everything, I felt like there must be something wrong with me. But you're setting your daughter up to be able to realize that actually advocating for what you need is a part of a human relationship.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that's such a good point. I have 6 siblings and our house was always clean. And now I'm like, my house is not clean. And I have 3. right? So the amount of work my mom did to maintain a house at that standard, right? She was ignoring a lot of her needs. So yeah, and I think we can parent differently in a healthy way, as you said.
Yeah. And maybe a step for any parent today after this is to, number one, think about, what do I need? Do I need a 30-minute walk every day? Do I need everyone to leave me alone? Like, what do I need? And then step two would be to start to communicate that to your partner and to your kids. And, if you haven't done that, you're probably going to run into a huge wall at first. No one's going to like it, right?
Yes, yeah, and that's such a great point. That even like around boundary setting, and there's such good resources out there about how to set boundaries, which is great, but we also have to be prepared for what that person does, right? And some people are like, fantastic, thank you for telling me what you need, and other people are, I actually really liked it when you sacrificed yourself a lot. So I'm not so happy with these boundaries. But if you get that pushback, that doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong, though, right? It's just you're asking people to adjust for you, and it's okay to ask that. So, yeah.
I think that is just worth so much, Tracy, just that alone. And for us to be okay when our kids don't want to be with us. For example, my 13-year-old just woke up and he doesn't always want to be with me, right? No, he's shaking his head right now. I do not always want to be with you. In fact, leave me alone. And we get hurt. We're like, oh no, like, why don't you want to be with me? And realize that it's okay when they don't want us to.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And then and just as you said, and we get to have feelings about that. But that doesn't mean they're doing anything wrong either, right? Like developmentally, I'm not as cool as I used to be as my kids get older, right?
And yet we are so cool. Really,
we
are. And everyone on the call, you are cool, but our kids, they won't see it.
Yeah, yeah. I tell my kids, like, when you're 25 and older, you realize what a good deal this is. So
that's when their prefrontal cortex has finally kicked in.
Exactly.
Oh, well, this has been absolutely amazing. I am going to put your, it's Quiet Pathways, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've got Tracy's website in the chat, just because you may really want to contact her. You do one-on-ones. Is that correct, Tracy?
Yeah. And I've been doing a bit of webinars too. So
oh, great.
Yeah. Just kind of moving into the world of teaching introverts some things that we never got taught, because extroverts didn't need to learn it, so it wasn't taught. So.
Well, I think you do such an amazing job at teaching and facilitating. I think that I really find your honesty just so refreshing, and how you talk from your own experience and also your clinical experience. And I do. Those are the therapists I relate with the most, is people who can just be really grounded and down to earth, but also have that clinical side. So refreshing.
Yeah, thanks, Connie. Yeah, and thanks very much for inviting me on. I really love what you're doing. So yeah, I'm very happy to be a part of it.
Oh, I'm so glad. Well, and honestly, everyone, I've been saying, how blessed are we to have access to people right now that we normally wouldn't. And so I just want to make sure that no parent feels left behind in this COVID time, because I mean, obviously the threats are huge. There's a lot of concern around what happens behind closed doors. And I just want to just again reemphasize to anyone that if you're suffering alone, please don't do this alone. I want to just very quickly and just very delicately just mention that we have created a safe place. It's called the Brave Parent Institute, where we have coaches, we have a clinical counselor, definitely not a therapist like Tracy with the introverted specialization. So I would highly recommend Tracy if you're needing that specialization. She's amazing. But if you're looking for a place just of support right now, I've had this dream in my heart for 4 years since we went through a mental health crisis, I wished that there would have been people to journey alongside of me and really show me, okay, I like this stuff on Instagram. I like connection. I like emotional regulation, but how the flip do I do that? Well, this is what it's about. And so it's a monthly membership. As of Saturday, the price is going up, but right now it's $25 a month. And with that, there's a specialized group training every week. There's big group training every week, or group coaching. We have a health coach that posts workouts every morning, menu plans every week, because how many of you know that our physical health is important and we need to take care of it, like Tracy said. We have a clinical counselor. We have access to support. And so if you're feeling right now that you need extra support, I'm just going to put my website right here. And you just want to go under community and you'll find the Brave Parent Institute. And again, it's there if you need it. And if you don't, I mean, by all means, I can't, every morning I wake up just thinking we have to make sure parents are okay. Because if parents are okay, our kids are going to be okay. And so just want to thank you so much, Tracy. Again, Manila, saying how helpful this was. And Jody. Jody is my friend. And actually, Jody, I never knew that you were an introvert. That's how well you just, when you're out there, you're out there. So I just have to say, and I've been friends with her forever. So you find out something new every day. But any closing thoughts, Tracy?
I would just like to repeat that if we can take care of our introverted needs, it's an interesting thing. When I take care of my introverted needs, I show up less introverted. And not that that was ever my intention, but the better I feel about myself, the better I'm able to make good connections for myself. So yeah, so really take care of that quieter part of you, and the results long-term are well worth the maybe the initial grief that might show up for you. So
that's awesome. And we do have a question. Going into middle school, twin girls that are shy and scared to make friends. Any suggestions? Maybe we'll end with this question.
Yeah, and I would say like starting in a place of like, what are those fears about making new friends? So just really normalizing, if you're more of a shy kid, you're going to have some fears about that. And then what are some of the ways you could make friends, right? So joining a group could be good, or do you know kids going into the school already that you know that you'll be made friends with, or that you can make friends with? But also, I think when we really hold that belief that our kids will make good friends, so as a parent, your kids are going to be okay. So it's like it's like they borrow from us, if that makes sense, right? So, letting them know that shy kids make friends, but they're going to find they're likely going to maybe do that more one-on-one kind of friendship, and to let them know that's really normal too for them. So yeah, I would just start what is that fear about? And then what are some of the plans they can make about that? And it's normal to have some fear.
So good. So good. Well, thank you, Tracy. And again, Tracy's website is quietpathways.com. Please reach out to her. No matter what, just don't do this alone right now. And we're cheering for you, parents. Keep in touch. And next week, I have some other special guests coming on. Jessica Hutton from Camrose. I always get Canmore and Canrose mixed up. Camrose Open Door. She's going to be with us, and my friend Sally, and we're talking about losing control. What? So anyways, have a great weekend, everyone. And again, Tracy, just all the best. Keep doing your worthy work.
Yeah, thank you, Connie. And thanks again for having me.
You're welcome. Have a great week, everyone. Bye now.